accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
And welcome everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS. We're on to season number 9, episode number 25, Taking Charge of Charge. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jeran from Jeranism. We've got some panel members and some guests today. Should be a fun show. We got a whole packed house. We've got first up, Zachary Zabala. Good times for all. Zach, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Jeran. This is going to be awesome. Probably one of my favorite topics to speak about regarding, when it comes to any type of subject, I think you can apply this to it. So this is one of my favorites for sure.
Awesome. Happy you're here. We've also got Iru Landucci from the land over and across and perpendicular. What's up, Iru?
Yeah, and I think every time you introduce me, a new axis came into play.
Yes, exactly.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here, and I hope I just entered, so for me it's a surprise, the topic, so I'm here to learn.
All right. Yeah, that's good. We should all be here to learn. We've also got Awesome Witsitgetsit in the house. Awesome, what up?
How's it going, man? Legendary panel of speakers, so I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I agree with Zach. Maybe one of the most important subjects that there is, the commonality of everything.
Yeah, and these guys are awesome. I mean, we remember Steve Falconer's here. He's from Spacebusters. Steve, how's it going?
Really great, Jeran. Thanks for having us on. And Zach, Austin, and Iru, good to blast from the past, man. Good to be back, boys. How are you?
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And we've got, for the first time on this show, we had David and Dawn presented at our last summit, and they are amazing. They're the authors of the book, What Really Makes You Sick. So we got David Parker and Dawn Lester both here. How are you guys?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you for inviting us. We're really looking forward to this. Get into some new stuff, some of our other stuff that people may not be so familiar with, that we've been looking at for quite a number of years. So I think we'll have quite a good conversation.
Yeah, hi from me, and it's great to be with you all. It's really good to be here.
Awesome. So I'll start out when we let Steve tell you guys how you are all on the same show. People might be confused. Why is Steve on with these guys? But go ahead and tell them that you are visiting, why you know each other, and what you guys have been up to this last year. I know you guys have been traveling and presenting, or not traveling, but, well, I guess you've done a little bit of that too.
Yeah, well, we all have known each other for a while. I've interviewed them before, but we've become good friends through the no, I guess you'd call it the terrain movement or the no germ movement. So we've been very good friends for a long time. And I promised them to come on up to Copenhagen. We met in London and said, hey, come on up. I'll show you. We've got, for lack of a better word, a ton of old Tartarian antiquitech and star forts. And I think we accidentally, we've been in 4 of them in 3 days, 4 star forts. Is that right? So they've been up since Thursday. Yeah, well, they've been here since Thursday. We did a day trip for David's birthday yesterday. We went to Malmo, Sweden.
All right, happy birthday.
Just so we could say you went to Sweden. So, yeah, so we're already here all together, and you invited me on the show, and I thought it would be great if they were here too. So here we are.
Perfect, fantastic. And how's that movement going? What do you think? What are you seeing in the way of terrain versus germ? Are you waking people up, or people catching on to that? Oh, I have a video, but I'll play that after.
Yeah, I don't know what we can say on YouTube.
Yeah,
Dawn, do you want to field that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been just sort of helping get the message out that with what's been going on for the last few years, I know we have to be a little careful with some of the words we're using. So just really helping people understand what's truly been going on, what our health is all about. And it does depend on the terrain, the environment, what we're exposed to, and none of those exposures have or anything to do with these little bits and pieces that we're told can, come over to us and invade our bodies and make us ill. It's nonsense. So it's really helping dispel the fear. I mean, that's one of the things that we think is an important part of the message. The really, taking away the fear so that people can just really live lives in freedom and, being able to understand what's going on. And of course, the more they understand the health side of things, the more they can see some of the other aspects of life that are, we're being told, we're not being told the truth. So, and busting the globe is one of those big topics, but there's so much that's interconnected.
Yeah, it's really opened up so many avenues and areas of research. I'll show this one video here, just it's a good little preview of some of your guys' stuff. If people don't recognize you, we'll just watch this little quick
The good things
preview
about this whole COVID myth is that it's woken more people up now than have ever woken up before to the lies of the authorities. And it's not just the misconceptions of the medical system, but the actual lies that are going on behind it, and the agendas, the political agendas, because it is a political thing, that are going on in the background. And more people are woken up to that now, and then are starting to question the whole political system. They're starting to question the banking system and see what a fraud that is, the legal system. And so this is a good thing.
So why don't you guys tell people real quick about your book and how they can get a hold of that if they're interested in that topic?
Okay. Well, our book, which really that little clip was about when we spoke with the Baileys some time ago, what really makes you ill, why everything that you thought you knew about disease is wrong. Happily, it's been very good seller around the world. So, as Dawn said, that's helped free a lot of people up, so that they can take back control of their health, and they know what really makes them ill, because what they've been told is not true. I know we have to be careful how we explain this because of YouTube, but if anyone goes to our website, which is whatreallymakesyouill.com, so nice and easy, they can find out all about that. There's a look inside. They can look inside the book. They can hear, because there's an audio version of it, so they can hear audio clips. That's all free stuff. They can see lots of our videos, which that was a clip of, and they can go to our Odyssey channel where there's a lot more, and find out more about us. So that's probably the best and easiest way. But we're probably not going to talk too much about that today, because many people don't know that we actually wrote a book before What Really Makes You Ill, which was called The Nature of Reality, which has been sort of a major interest of ours, Dawn and myself, for many years before we got into the health thing. And it was while we were looking and researching about the nature of reality, what this reality is that we're involved in, what we are as what is humanity, what are human beings, what are they really, and how do they interact with this reality, and how, if possible, they can take control of it, rather than seemingly being a victim of reality where stuff happens to you. It's not like that. And as we say in our book, reality is actually stranger than you can possibly imagine. And so while we were writing that little book, and this is going back about 17 years, I guess, is when we came across the health thing, because there was a bit of a chapter in there where we needed to write something about health, and in particular about these little things that are supposed to float around and make us ill. I'm choosing my words carefully here. And it was then that we found that we needed to do some research into these things. And that was the real tin of worms. We found that everything we thought we knew about illness, from what we'd been taught at school and at college and throughout our lives, was that there was no scientific evidence for it. So as I say, it was while we were writing about the nature of reality. So now that we've had the last 4 years, I guess, where there's quite a few people come into the terrain paradigm and sort of made a lot of people aware of it. There's still always the difficulty, as always, to get it into the mainstream, because there's huge resistance, as I'm sure all of your listeners know, huge resistance from the mainstream media for getting the truth out there about any subject, and particularly about health. So that's always a struggle, but we have to keep trying. But even so, more and more people are becoming aware of it. So our health side of it has, we know, set a lot of people free so that they can get back control of their health. So we're sort of dropping back, or certainly I am, into more about the nature of reality and just what people are and what this reality is and how they can take control of that too and not be in victim mode where it seems like there's a world out there where stuff just happens to them, of which they have no control of at all. So I guess we're probably going to talk more about consciousness and what that is, what we are, i.e. as people, what this reality is, and how it works in the best way that we can explain it. So we might do a bit of screen sharing later, and we'll see where it goes and how it ties in with some of the interesting things that Steve, Don, and myself have been talking about with Tartaria and the sort of lost energy supplies. And of course, it's been great being in Copenhagen, in Denmark, and Sweden, where there's many artifacts in the buildings and water supplies and fountains that all tie in with this hidden, lost technology, if you like, of energy. And because I'm retired now, but I've been an electrical engineer for in industry for the last 50 years. So energy, electrical energy is obviously something I'm very interested in. And a friend that I've been in contact with for a while in the States, he's actually a professor. And he's been doing quite a lot with energy and how it affects not only people, but the earth. And it'll also tie in with some of the questions that flat earthers have asked about the atmosphere and how it sticks to the earth and things like that. So there's quite a lot to cover if we want to get into it. And people, I think, will find it very interesting and quite surprised at some of the things that we've been discovering. So I think that's probably enough from me for now, and we'll see where we go with it all.
Well, that's awesome. And you also, this brings into the forefront the Mandela effect, right? Manifesting, ESP, the ether, consciousness. So it kind of is the, that one equation, the equation that solves it all.
Yes, exactly. And the phenomena of deja vu, which I'm sure most people have had a little experience of that. It's quite weird and magical and quite interesting, and ties in nicely with some of the things that we're going to talk about and hopefully show just what is happening when those instances occur. So, as I say, we'll see how deep we want to go. It's a deep rabbit hole, but I think we've got some good stuff we can talk about.
Yeah, aren't they all? So around 1 o'clock, we'll be heading over to Rockfin so that we can talk a little bit more openly. So if people are ready for that, please go over to Rockfin. It will be free as long as the show is live, but then after that, become a member over there for $15 a month, and you get everybody that's there. Austin, myself, GLOBEBUSTERS, you name it. Everybody is there, and you get all the content for just $15, and you support everyone over there. So that'd be awesome. And then we have our summit coming up, just so people know. That'll be about a month from now. It'll be December 8th and 9th, and tickets will be going on sale this week as soon as the trailer's done. And we tried to get Steve, and Steve is got a previous engagement, but Steve's going to be presenting at the one after that. So excited to have him. We do have like Jay Tolan this year. It's going to be awesome to have a presentation from him, and some other great presenters, David Avocado Wolf again, Amanda Vollmer, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, Kelly Brogan. So we've got a great lineup for you and possibly some awesome surprises. So be on the lookout for that. But that's it as far as we want to go through notes. And anybody got any questions for them before they get started on presenting? Ira, have you paid attention to much of their work? Or is he still here? I don't know where.
I'm here. Can you repeat, please?
No, I was just wondering if you've been, if you know David and Don, or have you watched their stuff?
No. Yeah, I just know about the book that they written. I don't know how to pronounce written.
Yeah.
But I am not aware about this this topic that they are going to talk. Of course, I know what it's about, but I never heard about that from them.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Ira, because somebody asked me day before yesterday about. They said, "Have you ever heard of anybody saying that we should drink ocean water?" And I said, "Oh, I've heard Ira talk about it, but you want to just cover that real quick because they wanted to know about that."
Yes. First of all, the first guy who came with that was René Quinton, a French guy who use that technique for feed the child of the early 20th century. Boys that are how you say in English, without the nutrients to survive after the war or crisis. That type of I trying to say in English, but the idea is he started using this technique based on that in the ocean water we have all the minerals, all the nutrients from the, if you want to take in the flat earth way, from the beginning of time. So in the ocean water we have everything, or at least if you want to take into the exoteric way, every organism came out from the ocean water, right? So that idea, it's something that you can test with yourself. I drink a lot of ocean water, especially when I start feel a little and with when I start feeling that I'm not full energy, because of course we are what we eat, and sometimes based on the actual way of living, I am not a guy who respect the times for eat and all the things involved in that practice. I think when you eat, you need to take a lot of philosophy behind that, and we lost, well, at least I speak for myself, I lost a little bit of that based on my work or the times that I need to do things, and I am not take into consideration that good practice of what we eat. And sometimes when I start feel a little weak, I drink ocean water. And you need to reduce, of course. You don't eat or you don't drink pure. If you're gonna, you can drink pure, but you need to drink a little in a lot of steps. If you want to drink maybe 50 centimeters, the actual technique is, I think, is 1/5 in the sweet water or regular water. There is a lot of books talking about that, but the experience is a very good one, especially in the first days when you start clean yourself, your stomach, your intestinos. I don't know how to.
That's right.
say. Yeah. So you have that experience where you start losing. If you spend a little time in the bathroom the first 2 or 3 days. But after that, it's something that you balance yourself. Of course, it's not a miracle solution for specific things. I think you can take it. The pharmaceutical company, they use the idea of selling products based on this pill has all the nutrients or all the minerals that you need from A to Z. Well, if you want to skip that and go more into nature things, I think the ocean water have a lot of qualities to take that practice. And also in my case, I consume a lot of I think the correct word is CDS, the chloride dioxide thing. So both for me are related, and there is a good thing if you want to use external things beyond your self in terms of meditation and things like I really love the Germanic medicine, things like that, but sometimes it not work. Sometimes you need help from outside, so I recommend that.
All right, awesome. Thank you for doing that. Steve, I'm going to let you go ahead and kind of lead the way here, wherever you want to go, what direction you want to go, and go ahead and get us going in that direction. I know you had a lot of subjects you wanted to talk about.
It's interesting what Iru is saying, because we take Celtic sea salts. What you're talking about is I've done several films and talks with Dr. Berlando, Amanda Vollmer, Dawn Lester was there. You're talking about the mineral cell salts that make up your body and resonate with the archons, the planets and the stars and the vibrational frequencies. So the seawater is where you're getting all of your Celtic sea salt, your Himalayan sea salts. It's all came from the sea. And your body is made out of 12 basic minerals and then 100 subdivisions, 15 other major ones. So that's interesting what you're saying, because I take them in pill form. and also use the salt forms. So I've never heard of anyone taking it directly out of the sea. Maybe Don and David quickly want to talk about that?
Very quick. I go directly to the ocean. Of course, you cannot go where the boats and or you have waste or oil floating on the water. You need to just go into not virgin, because we don't have any virgin part in the ocean shore, but you can go when people get used to swim there, and you need to enter until your neck and take water from the bottom. If you have the chance to get a boat and go a little deep, that's better, but it's not necessary to do that way. You can go when there is no any boat or mechanical parts floating around, and you enter until your neck. You take the water from that, then you have spend some times making that the sand grains and the dirt go to the bottom of the recipient, and then you start your therapy. Again, René Quinton, if you just type René Quinton therapy, you're going to have all these instructions. And there is, thinking this way, when you go to the hospital and you need to, when they put that suero, we call in Spanish, when they put the thing into your vein to keep your
the IV?
Yeah, that is salt water. So
yes,
saline drip.
I like
Yeah,
it.
saline. Yeah. Yeah, and if anyone wants to learn in detail about this, you can go to Spacebusters at BitChute or Odyssey. You can look at a film I did called Biochemistry Debunks Religion, Freemasonry, and Chickenpox, and another one called Esoteric Biochemistry with myself, Dr. Amanda Vollmer, who's been on the show, and Dr. Berlando. Yeah, but the things we were going to talk about today, while Dawn and David have been in Copenhagen visiting, we've got on some kicks about what is the nature of reality, as David was just saying, and what is deja vu? What is the Mandela effect? Why do some people experience it? Why do some others not? And we've also been talking a lot about electric charge, which gets into what you guys are doing with your Van de Graaff experiments, and not gravity, but electrogravitics, if you want to call it. What's really going on, especially even the UFO quote unquote phenomenon, where Navy admirals see these ships come flying out of the water at high speeds and splash in, and the water seems to part around it. So I think what we're going to talk about today gets into kind of really all of this, and especially the nature of reality. Also, like we were talking about, the terrain movement and the flat earth movement have an extreme parallel together, because they meet the same resistance from the same people, and the same scam is being run by the same people, on both sides. And when you understand that they are actually entwined, they both have the same goal, which is very interesting. And as you asked earlier, Jeran, you said, how's it going? It's going the same in our movement as it is with yours. Have you seen like an exponential awakening of flat earth since you guys started hitting the pavement?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I think that it's hidden, right? I mean, they're going to try and hide that growth. They're going to make it seem like it's not happening, or, you get these globe channels that get on there and say, oh, no, it's dying. It's on its way out. Well, they just see that because, of course, we're being suppressed. We're being held back. We're being shadow banned. So I think considering all that, we're doing pretty well, and we're on the precipice. We are on that edge where it seems like just a tweet from some famous person or something could take us over the edge.
Yeah, us too. And it's like, even without that tweet, there's so many people since 4 years ago who have woken up to what we're talking about. Just like when I got into flat earth with Ross and ran across you guys, there are like thousands times more people into flat earth now than when we started looking, and especially you guys who are way ahead of us.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
People are waking up.
It's amazing. Sometimes you'll meet somebody that will know about flat earth, is a flat earther, and then I'll think that they know who I am or that they've heard of me, and they haven't even heard of me. They've never even seen my videos. Like, Jeranism? Right? No, never seen that. Like, oh, okay. I thought that. So it is definitely growing way beyond what we could have even thought, and it's doesn't seem to be slowing down. Because again,
like
for
the
us,
younger generation.
Yeah, good.
there's just a younger generation, like 3 billion searches for flat Earth on TikTok. I think that may be why some of the health information is a bit different. Is they were so bold about just deleting it because they had an excuse that people could die or whatever, right? So they come at that information a little bit more violently, if you will. They're more covert about it with FE, so it's still on the platforms, right? So I think that the true health information may have a bit of a disadvantage regarding that, right? Because you have to actually go to a different platform to find it.
Right. Yeah, the advantage we have is they've only been censoring us for 4 years, whereas Flat Earth's been censored for 300 years. They've had a lot more practice censoring you guys since the Jesuits. So, but maybe we should go into the nature of reality, because we've been having some really interesting talks, Dawn, David, and Felix and myself, about that. And I know David's got a presentation, because there's a lot of people into Mandela effect and Deja Vu and even the nature of what's going on now in Ukraine, and also the horrors going on, in Gaza right now and everything. And there's a good discussion to be had about what is the difference between creating your reality and solipsism, ignoring that everything's going, that's not happening, and what's not happening for you. Because this is an empowerment, as David was saying earlier. There's a way that we can take control and empower our own reality that's very important and critical, and a lot of people are missing it. We're becoming victims to all of this propaganda because we don't understand we're in control. And I think the information he and Dawn have been giving me have been blowing me away. So maybe we could start going that direction and let them share what they've been sharing with me, because it's really empowering.
I think you said it best, too, when you talk about the victim mentality. That's the thing I've seen the most, even in talking with people. They love to say, well, this person's doing that, and it's like, no, bring the focus back on you. You can change your whole life. You can change everything. Just stop focusing on what you can't change, which is what other people are doing. So I think that we need to bring it back to addressing our own issues and taking care of ourselves. And I think that that's the way you see the world change. If you worry about what they're doing constantly and you're in fear and they've got this ability and they can do this and they can control us this way, then that negative energy just manifests. You're just going to get more of the same.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like we've been programmed to lie and be deceitful when it comes to the law. You broke the law when you go into court. You got caught doing something. But they're going to make you go in there and say, not guilty. And this and that. And if you don't, you get punished more. You get punished worse for telling the truth. For wasting time, the court's time, you get a lesser punishment. It's ridiculous. But yes, I watch a lot of videos with police interactions and things like that. And so many of these people are so quick to lie about just stupid little things. Take your medicine. You messed up. You'll get a ticket or something silly like that. And instead, they play the victim so bad that they turn a misdemeanor into a felony by being the victim and kicking the cop and trying to run away and this and that. And it's like, stop. Why are you being a child? Really, the arrested development in this country is staggering. The amount of adults that act like children when they get caught doing something wrong is just, it wasn't like this when I was younger. Or maybe the videos weren't out, so you couldn't see people acting like this. But my mom was always really stringent on this. If you mess up, you own up to it. You take your medicine. And yeah, we just don't see that today.
I was going to say the victim mentality is almost an outgrowth of our indoctrination in the school system, because, we're made to just be limited in what we can think. We're controlled. We have to defer to authority and do what the teacher says. I mean, I understand that's just getting worse and worse. So it keeps people in this kind of childish state, and it stops them from adulting and taking responsibility and owning up and being honest, because it's always that, like you say, kind of I didn't do it, which is, it's a childish thing, but we're not allowed, or we haven't been allowed to kind of grow out of it. And that's the control mechanism by all these sort of so-called, elite, whatever, globalists or whatever. The point of the entry point for what's been going on the last 4 years with our health, and being able to recognize that we are in fact able to take control of our health, starts people to see that, there are aspects of our lives that we can take control, and then they start to be able to see it in other areas. Now, some people have come in through the health side because of what's been going on the last 4 years. Other people have come in through, the flat earth, because that's, that's been going on for, you've been sort of into this for years, years before 2020, and various other, like the legal side of things or the banking side of things. So there are different entry points for people, but once they start on that journey of realizing that, they've been made to stay in that kind of victim, and there's nothing, there's this stuff going on and there's nothing I can do. And it's, as Steve said, it's just incredibly empowering when you realize that you can do something about it. And that's why learning, understanding who you are, and then you can really start to express it within this, what we call, waking state of consciousness, our physical reality, what we are here. And then we start to realize all the lies and put the pieces together. And then we see just how powerful we are. And therefore we can come out of this victim consciousness, and we can start to really, grow up. And that's what these, so-called whatever, I call them would-be controllers, because that's what they like. Just because they've got plans, it doesn't mean they're going to happen. So, we can say, well, yeah, we don't have to follow what you're saying. So it is very empowering, but it does affect all different aspects. And, it's just important to see how they all connect together, and then, take that information forward and actually express it in our lives and take control over everything we're doing. But understanding who and what we are really takes everything together, puts everything together, and takes us forward in a totally empowering way. So,
because
if I jump in there, if I may, I'm sort of going to cut to the chase really with this, because the only way that we can make sense of, Dawn has said about who and what we are and what power we have and how we can affect our reality. There's a big thing which people need to know, and that is that we operate because we think that the reality that we're operating in is solid and separate to us. Okay, so this is going to all sound a little bit esoteric, but it's the only way we can cut to the chase and get into this. So let me sort of explain where I'm coming from very briefly. If we try and think of how we experience reality, we only experience it through our five senses, don't we? Touch, taste, smell, hearing, sight, that sort of thing. And that's all we experience reality. But we know from our days studying science, that just looking at some of those things like the visible spectrum, the electromagnetic spectrum is very wide, but our eyesight can only see a very small percentage, sort of in the middle of the spectrum. And all the rest of the spectrum, we have spectrometers and things like that, where we can see it exists, whether it's in the ultraviolet range or the infrared range, but we can't see it. But we know that certain animals and insects can see it, so they will see a different reality. But our reality is very restricted just by our five senses, and this includes our hearing as well. But it goes even deeper than that. We think that this reality is solid, and I know that most people will think, well, of course it is. I'm sitting on a chair, I don't fall through it. I have to open doors. Of course it's solid. But let's think about what that means. If we're to believe what we're told in science, and there's good, as from an electrical engineering point of view, there's good reason to believe this, that everything is made of atomic structures, okay? And that the atoms have orbiting electrons, and there are spaces between them, and these atoms have a nucleus, neutrons and protons. But as you start to look into, well, okay, what is a neutron, what is a proton, And really, cutting it briefly, we're just left with something called energy, and no one can actually explain what that is. Now, I know there's a certain school of thought that will say, oh, yeah, but, electrons don't exist. Well, as an electrical engineer, I can say that, well, no matter what you may think about electrons, we use them as electrical engineers all the time. We have electrical theory, we have electron theory, as all things start as theories, but we wouldn't be talking to one another now over the airwaves, as it were. We wouldn't be able to use our computers without us as electrical engineers being able to manipulate the flow of electrons in printed circuit boards and solid state devices. It's all about actually operating and manipulating the flow of electrons. So if electrons didn't exist, then we wouldn't be able to do any of those things, and we wouldn't have mobile phones, we wouldn't have computers or televisions or any of the gamut of electronic equipment that we have. So whatever we may think electrons are, they do exist in a way. Now, I'd be the first to admit that as an electrical engineer, that no one truly understands what electricity is. We can do stuff with it, but we don't really know what it is. And in the end, we just have to admit that it's energy, as all science will. And that brings us to a starting point where, as Don and I had to study a certain amount of quantum physics to get a grip on this, and we came across still one of my favorite quantum physicists. He's very old now, in his 80s, I guess, called Professor Amit Goswami. And he said something which has sort of stuck in my mind when he said, no one will truly understand the nature of reality until they understand that matter, energy, and consciousness are the same thing. I'll say that again. Matter, energy, and consciousness are the same thing. Now, that gives us a great insight into knowing what consciousness is and what this state of reality is. And we're probably all familiar with what's attributed to Einstein, his formula E equals mc squared, where energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Now, another quantum physicist reinterpreted that equation, which everyone's probably remembers from their school days, and said what it actually is telling us is how much energy is required to give the appearance of matter. Okay, the appearance of matter. So we start to have to question what this reality is, because the more we look at it, the more we realize it's indeterminate. You can't actually determine what it is. And still other quantum physicists had come to realize and actually made the statement that from a quantum physics point of view, they can't prove that there's an out there. And that's their words. Can't prove that there is an out there. So what does this leave us with? So we start to have to question what this reality is. Now, one of the things that we like to use as an example to help people get their heads around it, because it starts to get very mind-bending, is let's look at a state of consciousness that we have all experienced and we all understand, and that's the state of consciousness which we call dreaming. Okay. Now, when we're in the full state of a dream, in the depths of the dream, we're not aware that we're dreaming. It's only when we wake up that we realize that we'd actually created a reality within consciousness and projected it as if it was external to us and solid. And we interact with it in the dream as if it is external and solid. And we can experience emotions in the dream. We don't fall through floors. We can walk about. We can meet people. We can drive cars and open and close doors and all of this sort of things that we would do in normal life. And it's when we change that state of consciousness back into the waking state of consciousness that we just say, oh, it's a dream, and we sort of dismiss it. But there's a great clue there that we're missing, because what we've just been doing while we've been dreaming is we've been creating a whole reality and projecting it as if it is external to us and solid, and we've interacted it in that way. So if we just sort of suspend disbelief for a moment and think, well, what if the state of consciousness that we call the waking state of consciousness is just the same? And while we're engrossed within it, while we are consciously totally involved within it, like in a dream, we're projecting it externally and interacting with it, and it seems to be solid and separate from us. Okay, and as Professor Ep25 said, matter, energy, and consciousness are the same thing. So this starts to give us a clue as to how this could be possible, where what we think of as our everyday reality is just another state of consciousness, different to, the time and space is different to how the time and space works in a dream. But quantum physicists will be the first to point out to you that time itself and space, in fact, do not exist physically. That, as they call it, time's arrow, past, present, and future, as we seem to interpret it in our everyday reality, to them is just the same. That past, present, and future doesn't actually exist. It's just a conscious construction. And so past, present, and future exist simultaneously. Now, these are difficult to get your head around, so this is perhaps a good time when, if I can, share my screen. I'm not used to using the Skype. I'm normally on Zoom, but hopefully I won't completely cock it up. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to see if I can just share my screen and share a couple of images which may help explain this, and we can get into then looking at what the Mandela effect is and what Deja Vu is and various other things. So
are you going to need
past life experiences as well?
Oh, good.
People claim that this will also explain past life experiences.
Exactly. What we think reincarnation is and all of that. So it starts to get really interesting. So let me see if I can do this.
Do you have anything that needs sound, David, or no?
Sorry?
It'll
just be my voice. I'm just going to show some images and talk over what they are. So let's see if I can do this. Okay, right. Let me know if you can see this. Can you see this?
Yep, got it.
Picture? You can, because the way I've got it at the moment, I can't see anyone now. So, okay. So as you can see, as I often say to people, no expense has been spared with this image. It's a tablecloth with squares on it. Okay, the fabric of time and space, you might say. So, yeah, I've called this a godlike position. So let's imagine just for a moment that we're in our godlike position. We are pure consciousness. Okay, we're not subject to anything, and we are looking now at each of these squares. Imagine that this set of squares before you extends infinitely in all directions, okay? And you can look into the middle part of it and call that the present, and look to the left and call that the past, and look to the right and call that the future. But of course, in your godlike position, you can see all events are there simultaneously, okay? But if we then just move on, and you can see again, we've got some quite expensive washes here, to represent ego consciousness. So imagine now with the central ring. Let's see if my cursor comes in here. It doesn't appear to, so I can't actually move it around. Okay, well, let me just talk you through it. Looking at the central ring, which you can see is just covering one square. Now imagine that central ring is representing our ego consciousness. It's representing the five senses. And operating in the five senses, we can see that we can only witness one event at a time. And as we move to the right in this, which is to our future from an ego point of view, we move one square at a time. At a time is an important thing. So this is how we create time. From our godlike position, we can see all the squares, so there is no past, present, and future. Everything is visible to us. But from ego's point of view, we only see one square, so we only see one part of an event. And as we move to the right, to the future, we start to see more portions of an event. Okay. Now, let's go a little bit further with that to talk about what the outer ring represents. And this is expanded awareness, all of which we have. And as we can see, the outer ring is covering more squares. So it has more awareness. It is aware of more facets of reality, more events. It can see into the future as far as ego consciousness is concerned. And of course, there's no limits to how big that outer ring is. It depends on how we operate, what the limits of our belief system is, represented by the inner ring. So the thicker that inner ring is, would represent how fixed and how many our beliefs are. What we believe is possible, what we believe is not possible, would all be represented there. So although the outer ring, which is still us, but our expanded awareness, whatever information that ring has, that area of consciousness has, it has to get through that belief system of the ego consciousness. So although it's aware of more things, it can't necessarily translate that through to ego consciousness because the beliefs are the barrier, and it quite aptly represented here as a steel barrier. And I'm sure we've all met those people where it wouldn't matter what sort of information you gave them, it just does not get through because their belief system is so rigid. It just repels all borders, if you like. Nothing can get through there, no matter how much awareness our greater consciousness has. But in certain altered states of consciousness, which might be meditation or even dream, we start to release the barriers of ego consciousness, and things come through to us from the more expanded awareness of the represented by the greater ring. So let's have a think about this a little bit further. So from our ego consciousness point of view, if we look to the left and follow that line of squares, that would represent, from an ego consciousness point of view, that would represent what we think of as our past history. Okay, but as we can see, adjacent to that line of squares are parallel lines of squares, just either side of it. And what they're representing are alternative timelines, alternative realities. And again, this is all accepted by quantum physics, that there is not just one reality. There are many. For every event, there are a finite number of alternate events, alternate realities, if you like. So we do not have just one fixed past. Only from an ego's point of view, it thinks we have, because it only remembers that one timeline. So this is where it starts to get more interesting, because, and this is where we have these strange things like the Mandela effect, where, bearing in mind, take any one of those squares in the past and look at an adjacent square to it, on either above it or below it. That is where that particular event has a similar but different outcome. Okay? And we can and do flip from one timeline to another for some reason, either because we've chosen to believe something different or something else, and we could flip into a different timeline. And therefore, wherever that is in our so-called past, it could be, let's say, half a dozen squares to the left, and something changes. And at that point, we flip into a different timeline. And then where we are in what we think of as our present, the events change in line with the new timeline that we are now in. And this is what is happening with the so-called Mandela effect, when originally we thought of something else that had happened 6 squares to our left, but because we've flipped into a different timeline, in our present, where it is now, we're experiencing something different and we get this peculiar thing, it's because it is a different parallel timeline, which is slightly different, okay? So that is what's going off with the sort of Mandela effect. Now, if we then look at the other phenomena called Deja Vu, which literally means from the French, already seen, and as you might expect, what we're looking at is with, again, coming back to our ego consciousness sitting there on its one square, but our expanded consciousness is seeing things what, from an ego's point of view, are in its future, but of course already exist and can be already seen. And sometimes that information slips through the barrier of ego and comes into our present day consciousness. And for anyone who's had that experience of deja vu, it's quite magical and quite breathtaking when you are quite sure you have literally already seen it, you have already experienced it, which of course you have, because it already exists there. There is no true future. All of those events already exist. I'm hoping this is making sense of it. I'm sort of going through it fairly quickly, but I think you can probably start to get an idea of the Mandela effect, which is things that happen and flipping onto different timelines in the past. And the deja vu effect is where information that already exists slips through the barrier of ego consciousness, and we become aware of an event that is yet to happen, or something, i.e., what deja vu means is already seen, which of course you have already seen it from expanded consciousness. Okay, we'll take one other little example here. Now this is obviously just going to represent two people, because it's a great mystery to try and think, well, what do other people represent in my consciousness? What do they represent? So let's see if this helps. Imagine this is another person within the ocean of consciousness, which is vast and unlimited in any way. And as you can see, we've got the same sort of thing. We've got the two smaller rings surrounding one square, representing ego consciousness of two seeming individuals. As you can see, one ring, the one on the left, is thinner than the one on the right. That ego consciousness is thicker, if you like. It has a different set of beliefs which it holds rigidly. And so from its expanded consciousness, it's even more difficult to get any greater awareness through, because of the more rigid and multiple fixed beliefs that ego consciousness has. And so limits its ability to be flexible, limits its ability to take on board extra knowledge compared to the one on the left. And also then we can look at this as one individual trying to communicate with another individual. And I'm saying seeming individual because there are no true divisions in consciousness. I mean, the old adages from the Eastern philosophies of everything is one is perfectly true. There are no divisions in consciousness. But we're just using this as an example to try and get through this rather mind-boggling concept. So let's say that this is representing two individuals who want to communicate, do communicate. So the expanded awareness rings, the bigger rings, can communicate much more easily, but whatever those rings try to transfer from one to the other is still going to be limited by the beliefs of the smaller rings, which are representing ego consciousness. So if one expanded awareness is trying to communicate with the other, that can be no problem between the expanded awareness areas, but they still have this ego barrier to get through. And that can be impenetrable until, from an ego's point of view, it starts to change its beliefs. Okay? So hopefully that helps a little. Now, I'll just touch on one other subject, which I think this slide may help. Insights into reincarnation. Now, we've just been saying that, and quantum physics agree, that time does not really exist. It is a mental construction. And you can see from the little diagrams that we've just been looking at, all events exist, and that we do indeed have multiple lives, but rather than them being one after another, which is a normal process of reincarnation, as you can see represented here, where you live, you grow older, you die, you pass into infinity, are reborn, and the whole cycle starts again. That's the traditional way of explaining reincarnation. But as we can see, that is based on sequential time, a sequential time sequence. But as we've just been talking about, that is not the fact. So, cutting a long story short, what we really need to understand is, yes, we have multiple lives, but they all exist simultaneously and can be accessed through expanded awareness, depending on how expanded it is. So we can become aware of other lives that we lead in parallel. Okay. And sometimes some of that information from another life, which can be seemingly set in a different time period, it could be something in the 1700s. It could be in what we might even think of as the future from an ego point of view, because all of those things happen. And sometimes that information can leak through or be deliberately sought in states of contemplation and meditation, and can become aware of these lives. And there's many examples of this, particularly with children who are not so rigidly fixed and not so rigidly indoctrinated into the type of life that most of us have been brought up to believe through our schooling and further education and societal rules. So, and if you have got children, anyone, I know with my children when they were growing up, I mean, they're adults now, of course, but when you pay attention to children, you soon start to see that, particularly while they're young, and particularly before the age of 7, they're not so tightly bound, if you like, from a consciousness point of view, into what we think of as a physical body, but it's just a creation. In the same way we create a body, if you like, in our dream state, we create a body in this state, what we call waking reality. And children before the age of 7 are not so rigidly embedded in it, and we come across many examples of this. I have personally, in my dim and distant past, in the ages of 3 and 4, and I've certainly observed it in my children when they were that age, and they see things and are aware of things that in later life they lose the ability to see, to get, if you like, indoctrinated out of them. But you can learn a lot by watching your children and listening to them, listening to what they're saying, and you'll see instances of not only telepathy, but also instances of them seeing things that you can no longer see and hearing things that you can no longer see. So it can be quite an education to do that. Okay. I think we'll go back to this. So I'm hoping that what we've just talked about will give us some idea that we are not confined to a physical reality. The sooner that we can start to realize and study and look into the fact that there is not a solid and separate reality to us, that the reality we experience is generated by us, solely by us, in the same way we do in a dream. And I know this sounds a great jump in understanding, but I think if I go to another slide here, and I'll read this out because it's a very interesting slide, if I can put this up there, and this is from one of the great Indian sages, Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, He's no longer with us, but who was probably one of the greatest modern sages. And this, what I'm going to read to you, is only short, but it really encompasses everything we need to know about what this reality is and what we can do with it. So he said, "You have made this world and you can change it. The world, of which you are the only source and ground, is fully within your power to change. What is created can always be dissolved and recreated. All will happen as you want it, provided you really want it. You have created the world's sorrows out of your own desires and fears. You deal with them. All is due to your having forgotten your own being, having given reality to the picture on the screen. You love its people and you suffer for them and seek to save them. It is just not so. You must begin with yourself. There is no other way." Now, everything is in there, because what it's telling us really is that exactly what we've just been talking about. There is no solid and separate reality out there. There is no out there. It's our perceptions. It is in the same way we do in a dream, based on our fears, our hopes, what we believe is true, what we believe is possible and not possible, creates the reality that we then experience. This is why it's very important not to listen to the doomsayers, doom and gloom merchants. This propaganda is fed to us, if you like, in this reality for a reason, is to keep us entrapped in. So it's very important to realize that you create your personal experiences based on what you believe and based on what you fear. And therefore, you can change it. And I think, as Steve said, it's something better than solipsism, which tends to think of, stuff's happening, but if it's not happening to you, then you don't care. And therefore, it gets labeled as being selfish. But it's much greater than that. When we say, as the sage is saying, you're just giving reality to the pictures on the wall. You think that what sometimes comes into your area of perception is real. So think about your lives. What is happening to you personally? Not what you think is happening to someone else. You think that you can see, or led to believe that you can see other people's realities. Well, you can't. You only ever see yours. And this is a great barrier to get over. So you have to start to realize, and this is very liberating and gives great freedom, once you know that you are the sole creator, as he said here. You are the sole creator of your reality, and you mold consciousness. Consciousness is our tool. In the same way that a potter takes this basic clay and can then mold it into whatever he wants, plates, bowls, dishes, cups. We use consciousness as our tool. It's not what we are. We are far greater than that. We are spirit. We are the one, manifested as the many, if you like, in the same way that the Bible says that we are made in the image of God. Well, this is true, because we are. Some people think this is being blasphemous, but it's nothing to do with that. It's the source, if you like. That's why I don't really like to use the word God. We are the source. We are all that is. It's this ocean of spirit, whatever you want to call it. We don't really have a suitable vocabulary to describe it because we're trying to describe the indescribable. But we are all that is, and we use consciousness to, like the potter does, we use consciousness to create our reality. And we use it to create a reality in different states of consciousness, one of which we're all very familiar with, which we call the state of dream. And the other one is what we can call the waking state of consciousness. I mean, there is another state which we can call imagination, where and then we shift into another state of consciousness, which is often called death, where we switch off from this state of consciousness and move into yet another one, but that's a different story. So it's really getting to grips with the fact that we create our own personal reality. And as has been said before, the point of power is the present moment. Whatever we decide in the present moment is the only real thing, and we can decide what we want in our reality. And we have to stop thinking that it's someone else creating our reality for us. You know, it's the Bill Gateses, it's the Klaus Schwabs, it's the whoever. You know, these don't have to, they're just spectres, really. They do not have to be in your reality. And it's not a case of going out there and somehow working out in what you think of as physical reality, because you're just creating it. You know, it's like the old saying of, you know, love peace, don't hate war, you know, because, or in the Matrix where Neo is trying to bend the spoon, and the little boy says, you know, you can't bend the spoon, that's impossible. And if you think about it, what he's trying to say is, if you're creating the spoon and trying to bend it at the same time, you're just defeating yourself, because you're creating the spoon. What you would need to think of is a bent spoon. And so you put your energy into what you want, not what you don't want. And these are the secrets of this, really. Very simple, but it's a very big change from what we've been brought up to believe all our lives. But the ancient wisdom philosophers have come to know this over thousands of years, and they're really put into those relatively short words from Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. And it's, as I say, it's all in there. And if we sort of contemplate it, we'll start to see and grow into our own power and be able to take full control of the reality and stop being sort of sucked into what we think of as world events happening somewhere else. You have to concentrate on what is happening directly in your life, moment to moment. And if you don't like what is happening, then change it. You are in control. And that's a great liberating power to have. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen for the moment and see if I can get out of this. All right, let me just see if I can get back to. I don't seem to be able to do this. Right, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now and see where people might want to go with that, with some of the things. I'm happy to explain things in a little more detail, or we can leave it at that and move on to the other subject, this mysterious subject that Steve and Dawn and I have been looking at, particularly in Copenhagen and Sweden, of this seemingly lost energy source and how we can sort of bring that into being. Okay, so
I'm sure there's lots of questions after that, David.
Probably a few. And we also have, we're going to go through the super chats real quick, and then we're going to head over to Rockfin so we can talk a little bit more. But let me see what we've got for super chats on this side. I did see a couple. If anybody wants to send them in, you got a last second here for questions for either one of them. We've got Flat Earth Daily Eric, who says, I'm learning See the Bent Spoon. Thanks for the great stream. And we've got another one from Eric who says, is this from today? Yes. Sleep is an interesting thing to me. Ask Dawn to tell a bit about what we know about sleep. Great stream. We've got, you want to talk about that? That's it for now, I guess. Yeah. So, Dawn, do you want to talk about sleep?
Yes, as David said, I mean, it's a different state of consciousness where you are, I say you, again, it's not us as the individuals that we think we are who are sleeping. It's going from the more expanded state of consciousness that is focusing in different states of consciousness. So at the moment, if you like, kind of I'm focused in this waking state of consciousness. I can close my eyes and focus into a different state where, you know, you might call it imagination or something, meditation or something like that. and I can drift further and then call it the dream state, or drift further and call it deep sleep. So these are different states of consciousness, if you like. The difficulty is always thinking of it from the kind of physical, personal perspective of thinking I'm going to sleep, whereas it's the focus is being removed from the physical state and being moved in, sort of focused into a different state. And from the greater perspective, the wider perspective of who and what we are, is that we can have different experiences depending on the state of consciousness. We may choose to have certain experiences, as David was talking about, these different events. They may be experienced in the dream state, so when we are what we call asleep. So the dream state, we could choose to have certain experiences because the way we function is less limited than here. We're not as restricted by the sort of five senses, which we call filters. So the filters are somewhat softer, so we can have different kinds of experiences in the, as I say, in the dream state when we're not focused here. So it's a question of the focus of attention, but it's realizing it's not from who we think we are as a sort of physical person, if that helps.
Yes, excellent. And I believe that's it. Oh, thank you, Doug, for being a member for 2 months. We appreciate it. And let's see, does anybody on the panel have any questions as of right now, or do you want to go over to Rockfin?
No, I just want to say, first of all, great introduction, because the topic is so vast that we need weeks if you want to see in that way. But for me, personally, my wake up begins, at least in this incarnation. I really emphasize the idea of changing words, changing concept in the daily basis, because that is how you reprogram yourself. Stop using words from the mainstream academy, and or at least resignificate, trying to make your own spell, your own psychomagic effects, rating words and put an equal, for example, and put what you want to be to be that special word. And for me, everything started at the age of 21 years old, when I just, without any intention, I see my body in my bedroom, in my bed, and start, crawling, because that first experience, I didn't have the enough power to fly or to just walk in my two legs, or etherical legs. So I started crawling with my arms. I didn't have any feeling down of my hips. And when I wake up, because that you are not, I am not sleeping. I just have this out of body experience. So when I get back to my body, that was the starting point where I'm start asking for me right now, I call the Great Spirit, because the spirit came from, this word fire or energy. So we are part of that big energy, if you want to see in that way. And I start asking questions to that Great Spirit. At that time, I didn't call it that way, but something inside me trying to communicate, and start receiving, information that, of course, you need to be aware to detect that response from the Great Spirit. But I'm start with a metaphysic book called, it's a Spanish woman who wrote about the power of visualization and meditation and the law of attraction, things like that. Of course, you can, take it as a new age thing. Of course, it's very old age. It's not a new age. Maybe the new age movement take it and trying to resignificate and change path or change the orientation of that information. But that is always was there and always going to be there. And I'm started using that techniques, trying to create my own reality. Of course, I have my my downs and my up feelings along the path. But I think that was the first time that I'm thinking for myself and trying to think out of the box and trying to get power to myself using that techniques and trying to practice something, because sometimes a lot of people just read or get this information, but they just put in the back of the head and take it as an entertainment. And you need to start practices, and the practices start with little things, like, for example, changing words, stop blaming yourself for whatever, and start doing this type of things, start changing your reality. So great introduction. And in fact, in my last, I think was my last summit, I talk a little bit about this type of concept. For me, beyond the flat Earth or beyond the conspiracy topics, there are a lot of information there. This is the most important thing at the end of the day. Using this as favor and trying to change your time and your incarnation.
This is flat Earth, because when you look at what the Jesuits did, why did they tell everyone? We all know the elites go back and change history, right? Why do they rewrite history? Why do they rewrite history? Why did the Jesuits tell you the Earth is a ball spinning around this? Because what David's talking about is you have multiple parallel timelines running at the same time together. If there was a traumatic event in your life in the past and you went back and convinced yourself that another possibility happened, your consciousness would switch to the result now of what would have happened in that other timeline. Like that movie, what was it, Don? Sliding Doors.
Origin.
Right? So you take his tablecloth example, you go back in history to something that happened to you 6 squares ago on the grid. You go up one and back to future ego consciousness awareness. And David will tell you, there's a guy of the story of the mortgage. I'll let you tell that, David, with the mortgage story. But the reason the elites change history is because if it never happened, even though it did in your grid behind you, they tell you that you're on the timeline that happened in another grid parallel to it, and it brings you back forward. They have teleported you to a timeline that doesn't exist because you don't have any experience of the past timeline. Right, David? And tell them about the guy with the mortgage paid.
You might be on mute, David.
And when I can, I like to share screen. I'll just
okay. Yeah, you can go do that right now. Go ahead, Jeran.
Okay. I really recommend. Unfortunately, I uploaded to my webpage, but it's in Spanish. The movie, of course, the origin of the movie is in English. It's called Origins, and it's a movie based on real facts of people that remember past life. So it's for 2014, I believe, and everything starts with this idea where, when you mention, for example, to evolutionist or to Darwinian guy, the idea of you cannot explain how, for example, an eye was created. And I don't know if you heard about that argument, and the Darwinists are getting crazy because they cannot explain how we have a simple, quote unquote, simple eye mechanism. So the movie starts with this idea, which is a guy who is a scientist trying to debunk the creationism. I think I didn't pronounce very well, but you know what I mean. Trying to debunk the idea of the God exists, based on the trying to create in the lab from a worm without any eyes, trying to grows eyes in the worm. And after that, things start happening, and he ends having a real experience from his girlfriend that she died, and reconnect with a child in the in other country. I explained terrible, but please take a look at the movie. And when I see the movie, I remember this documentary, which there is a modern version in Netflix. The people that, based on the child, has experience for super with really life, how you say, remembers. The child start talking like if they was still in their past life. So it's crazy. And I have that experience with a guy, with a child of here in Spain. So it's very crazy when you start having this experience in first person. But if you want to, enter into this article and from here start seeing things, or maybe go deep in this information, of course, Enter the Void is a movie that beyond the style of the movie, because it's based on this modern life way, with a lot of, well, it's the actual life that we live. Okay, it's the capitalism version of our time, but it's a nice movie to at least contemplate the idea of the 3 days, quote unquote, of death before choice to getting back here into this experience. And then remember the Gateway Project. And the Gateway Project is a project from the CIA, which is a very, very real. And after this project, the Monroe Institute was created. And here, the most important idea here is that when militaries military guys start practicing out-of-body experience, when they come back, they start talking about that we live inside of a torus field called the holograms, and a lot of stuff that you can easily, let me just get here. Supposedly, the experience that these Marines have in terms of practice this is that when they come back, start talking about that we live in this type of scenario, which we have a hologram part and material world, and we have in this we live in this type of simple torus energy fields and blah blah blah. So a lot of things that you can read from this article, well, not article, from this project, is a lot of point that match with flat earth concept of a total field. But one of the conclusion from this project is that we need to take into consideration when we go to this astral projection plane that there are entities, intelligent entities, without any corporeal bodies. So there you have another dimension, or consciousness plane, or whatever you want to call it, that there is an intelligent energy living there or experience there, that we could be ourselves in that dimension before coming back, or at the same time while we are here. We also have this connection with no physical worlds and things like that. So this came from the CIA, for example. And for finish, again, I think the idea of trying to understand this world, that is why it's so important, the flat earth, because for me at least, you can understand how much effort and resources the heliocentric model have, because it's one of the best way to take out all of all this type of experience and trying to put you in a matrix of the materialism 1000%, and take out of the spiritual world and things like that.
The interesting thing, I don't know, David, can you share the screen again where the two magnets with the two rings?
Well, we'll go over to
sure.
Yeah, we'll go over to Rockfin.
Should we go to Rockfin and then pursue this?
Yeah, we'll go to Rockfin right now. And thank you everybody for being here on YouTube. Thank you for the super chats and the questions. I think I caught them all. Check one more time. But yeah, and I see a lot of people upset that they don't agree necessarily with what we're talking about. Just you should have the ability to take it in. And people know my opinion on a lot of these subjects is a little bit different than maybe we're listening to. You just have to be able to take it in, see if it matches your reality, because I'm always willing to listen and learn new ideas, new concepts, and then weigh them against reality, right? Do they match? That's what we should be doing. So I definitely think we can change our reality. And that's because we are conscious creators. Manifesting is real. But if we can change things in the past, let me just ask you this question real quick, because I do think when we change things in the past, it would be purely mental. Just as if we imagine something in the future, I think it's purely mental. So if this explains Mandela, David, explain to me how exactly it would be that things would physically change if you're saying that they're almost like fooling us about being on a different timeline.
Okay, well, let's if I can share my...
Sure. We'll go over to Rockman, guys. See you guys over there. Thank you, YouTube. It's been fun. We will get down and dirty in a minute, and we will see you over there. Thanks. Peace. Okay, we're over at Rockman. Go ahead.